Victor Vernov, Director General of ROWI, founder and Managing Director of PIM Solutions, Sergey Chernov, Deputy General Director of Roseltorg, Victor Simonenko, welcome, and Managing Director of Sovcombank Digital Bank, Chereshnev, hello. And I would like to give the floor first to you, Andrei. Just take a button upwards and it started to work. And I would like to ask you why you as QIWI have actually got to Finnopolis with this problematics of Fintech for small business. Why did you raise those questions? In fact, about the importance of small business for the economy and its development, a lot has been said and long since, and actually the high share of self-employed people and small business in the economy enables it to grow faster and be more crisis resistant. And about 23% here in China, actually it's around 60%. So we do have prospects for development, and today there is even more importance in it. And since it's SMEs are below the sanction radars, they are actually starting to play an important role on the national level in exports and imports, where large players are encountering big difficulties because of the sanction pressure. So today, like never before, the role of SMEs is very important. So what can we as the Fintech do for it in the financial sector? Actually, the surveys show that they are content, and the main problematics lie in different areas. But as we're looking back, as we're looking at ourselves and looking to SMEs, they are considered as one segment. So the retail, it's looked upon as a single segment. So in the framework of similar products, similar needs, they are different inside. For example, the taxi companies have one set of problems and the marketplace suppliers another set of problems, and the companies who are doing foreign trade a different set of problems. So we as financial companies need to understand the needs of every sub-segment and act in the relevant directions. And at QIWI we are trying to act in this same exactly in this vein. For example, we work with the taxi companies and we provide to them payment and loan solutions which actually adjust to their business models. Also, we have purchased recently a company called Intellect Money, which is providing services to payment and commercial sector. We're also working with self-employed entrepreneurs for the new economy, bloggers, streamers, webmasters. Those people have needs for payment solutions, and even though they are self-employed, physically self-employed, we provide solutions to them which enables them to operate as businesses. And there are many areas at which we need to look. For example, the cross-border payments are especially pertinent, especially applicable, and many things that worked yesterday have stopped working now, and many things, in many cases, the situation is changing, and it's very important for business. So new alternative solutions are very important. So now the market players are working very intensely, looking forward to results from the development of cryptocurrencies in the CIS and Russia, and if there is some operability that can become a basis for international settlements. Also, there is an active dialogue about cryptocurrency use in the transfers. There are blockchain solutions, discussion of blockchain solutions, and even though you should somehow move the money, so essentially we are playing the role of a blood system, blood transfer systems, and the goods need to move across the border. It seems to be very important for SMEs and for other sectors as well. And if we go back to the needs of the client, they often lie not in financial services, but there are many challenges they are facing when it comes to logistics, the accounting, the finance, IT solutions. And often what the clients need, it's not single financial services, but they are included in a larger use case or a specific context where there are solutions are required at the junction of various competences. And we are seeing that the future of the development of financial services lies around the solutions which merge various competences, and we think that this can be more effectively done, among other things, via the partnership when companies partner up with non-fintech companies or other companies that actually service those segments, and we are actively searching for that. So there may be some breakthrough cases for specific segments in small businesses. Andrei, there are many issues that I pay attention to, but one of them at the top, it's an extreme center. We started to talk about foreign trade and cryptocurrencies, digital currencies, and as I talk with people who in this or that way are touching upon that, because there is some confusion arising, because the digital platform, if you speak in an understandable language, they are actually exist to bypass the banks. If you just say it straightforward, but on the other hand, state banks are actually in charge. They provide the liquidity to the money that gets into the state. So a digital ruble or any other digital currency, you need to create them. But people don't understand if we already have cryptocurrencies which are already operated. For example, I have a banking applications and there are many digits, zeros, ones, and they are not provided with anything, and so that's not a digital money. So I'm not holding anything in our hands. So it's not digital ruble. So why do we need to put this on, so it may be working tomorrow, and tomorrow it may be not even be able to work. I will not be saying about this whole story, but in the framework of the foreign trade, otherwise we go too far into detail. Why actually? Actually, no matter how strange it might seem, we're talking about the foreign banks in the first place, and the foreign banks are actually paying not only in local currencies but have correspondent accounts in dollars and euros. And it seems like they are not sovereign actually, because they have to listen to the American or European regulator when it comes to servicing their transfers and accounts. And it turns out in this sense that some payments like in liras cannot go through to Turkey because the banks are afraid to lose those relationships. And then it seems like digital currencies from the central banks of other countries could help to solve those problems, or some other decentralized solutions which are not dependent on the banks. So actually cryptocurrencies are solving that problem, and they may be outside the zone of regulation, but anyone who actually is in touch with anyone else who is performing some foreign trade transactions or using cryptocurrencies, they actually know that this is something that already works, and yet there is no interoperable system in place, but cryptocurrencies already working to bypass bypassing the existing systems. So if we have already the cryptocurrencies, would digital rubles and liras be a reliable solution, or is it just a patch? So, in other words, is it a universal cure? Well, no, it could be a useful thing. And we can look at the existing solutions, the cryptocurrencies that are being used, so no solution can provide, and nobody can service all the use cases and all the segments. So we should look as broadly as possible, and there are more different tools at work, and in the future we will be able to regulate it and take away whatever is necessary. So if you can add something, if you want to add something, you can take the mic and connect at any moment in time. So far, just to sort of kickstart the discussion, we had some warm-up, and maybe we will let Ivan Podbereznyak speak up from MSP Corporation about the dialogue of SMEs with the state. What is it? A service upon request, or it's just out of despair? Let's listen to them. So, okay, it's a provocation. So I have this role. So once again, it's good to be here, and actually you are raising it correctly, and there is this relationship between the man and state, citizen and state. Everybody wants to be a night guard. I'll just protect people, and everybody would be doing everything themselves. But actually, there is a whole set of support measures on behalf of the state which currently exist, and there is a task to change the approach that is currently in place, because we provide a lot of help, and you have compared the state with a kind of a security guard, but nobody is lining up with an hand extended for help to this night guard. But actually digitalization means accessibility of the services, and it's surrounding us. So from actually applying to the kindergarten to registering a business, you can do everything in digital format, but there is still an approach. Wherever you have opened the card, with what bank you open the card, you can actually use the assistance of that bank. But speaking about the toolkit, speaking about our segment, SMEs, there are a lot of things, a lot of online interface with the state bodies happening. And it's very important to have reliable tools. And one of the most important problems is that the same information can be requested a dozen times, and something has to be done about that. And we have this SME.rf digital platform, MSP.rf, where in the pilot mode, a very interesting thing is being launched, that the digital profile of an entrepreneur, where the entrepreneurs are registered, where you can from various open registers pull up various information, whereby you can obtain different services for registration, for submitting and processing different credit applications, financial information, etc. And by the end of the year, this service will start working to the full capacity, and then it will be easier for the entrepreneurs to get financial services and perform other important legal actions, and all of that, which is also important, should be comfortable from the point of view of the user interface, understandable from the in terms of narrative and a plain description and a plain language. There is actually a lot of information available, but it's rather written in a very dry language, or we are actually trying to make it so that it's not a language of an official, but a plain language which we speak outside the various official events. So I think it's an interesting direction to ease the life of the entrepreneurs. I spoke on the sidelines with a guy, and he said that KPIs, there are KPIs, and the task is to process an application for 5 minutes instead of half an hour. And we have gradually arrived at the condition when it's an application either for a credit or something else. It's actually a lift, and so I didn't actually yield to your by your provocation. And the competition level is such that you need to fight for the client, and it can be 5 minutes, 10 minutes to this toolkit. And this can help the entrepreneurs to feel comfortable in this race. So I would like to actually say a few words about applications for credits, because we have some niche projects, credits up to 10 million rubles, and on the digital platform you can do it in one click. You can apply to 8 banks, including Sovcombank, and I actually have looked at you instantly. It's connected to us, it's very comfortable. You don't need to run around many banks. So it's one click connecting you to 8 banks, and the set of services will also be expanding, and I have just nominated 2 services, but there are actually dozens of them, especially since there are constant provocations. But actually there are 8 banks, and something similar was in 2000s. So if you come to a store with a red logo, do you want a credit? And he applied in 2008 instantly for a consumer loan to 8 banks for a payment. But actually, yes, we did the same thing. There were 8 tables placed in an office. People were pulling you by the sleeve to get in, and here all of it is digital. Everything is in binary code, and actually turning you down is wonderful. So why would you say about turning people down in such a wonderful morning? And the more banks there are, the more is the likelihood for approval. So I wouldn't be taking too much of your time. But actually, digital world is a part of our life, and it's also the part of the life of the SMEs. It's a significant part of our economy. It's over 28 million of employed people and over a third of economically active population in Russia. So as we convert, as the more services we convert in the digital format, the more we assist to raise the country, to develop the country. Yes, it's excellent, Ivan. Also, I will not be promising to developing the provocation. You have partly answered the question that I wanted to ask, to what extent it is comfortable for SMEs to maintain dialogue with the state. Of course, it happens faster, but the question is, actually, there are few wishes. It's probably not the only wishes that people have. But when it comes to SMEs, the SME entrepreneurs, they have other wishes as well. Actually, they want to get credits at favorable rates. They want to earn money, but apart from earning, you have to have some financial shoulder, and of course you are opening the Pandora box, and the corporations have very many discounted programs. It's a topic for a separate discussion, but I have mentioned such a mechanism as umbrella pledge, umbrella guarantee, and we have actually issued over 180 billion rubles in loans to the economic agents, economic entities, and that's not a limit. By the end of the year, it will be over 200 billion. So about the communication, of course, it's important. Financial technologies, it's all important. But on the other hand, are we not forgetting about people? Because machines are cynical, they don't have emotions, they take decisions very fast, and they allow receiving maximum profit within a short time. But what can we do with the people? Because actually it's pretty clear. There is also a wonderful 360-degree service. It's a feedback service, because I personally, in spite of the digital age that we are experiencing, I cannot believe people until I look them in the eyes. And then when the algorithm faults, you have to do something. The person feels comfortable when he or she gets a live feedback. So we'll have this universal 360-degree service. For example, if your application got lost, or the control bodies have told you that there are labor migrants working next to your location and let us fine you. So we wanna write to them, and it's not a robot that's giving feedback, but live people, not electronic voice. And there is a whole palette of the services. The main thing is easier to get through by knocking. So this MSP.RF, it's all very easy. You can get in, you will like it. There is a wonderful dialogue, interesting dialogue within Steam speakers. And I'm sure that Yaroslav Chereshnev has connected, and if you allow... my name is Yaroslav, and I prepared for provocations. So I also called Yaroslav the Wise sometimes. Yes, when it comes to replacement of a person by a machine, you often hear this formula. It's actually a replacement of some human functions by a machine. So when you replace someone by a machine, you will need John Connor, and nothing is gonna happen. So it often sounds from the side of some machine fighters, people who are afraid of machines. But we will hardly completely replace people with machines. So let's speak about stimuli and risks for the development of the financial technology market for SMEs, because it's more or less clear where we are issuing from, but now the mist is getting thicker. and we understand what risks there are and what we want to avoid, because I usually give the examples of digital banks. They were actually moving ahead, they were the front runners. And we were learning on their mistakes, and we actually leaped over the pits, the hurdles that they were overcoming. We have actually bypassed them. But can we do that in this case, in the case that we are talking about? Can we overcome them by learning from their mistakes and going further? I would actually argue about the current level of the development of our digital banks and their experience, which prevails above ours, because I think that taking into account the faults that have been have been made by the Western colleagues, I'm not actually very immersed in the Western market. When the borders were more or less open and you have traveled, sometimes we were surprised how come we cannot pay by the phone in this country when we were traveling abroad. But we were actually different in terms of the accumulated information. If you take some Western economy from the second world, the third world, there is actually some accumulated database which people are using, and we haven't had a multi-purpose universal database since 1991. Any data storages or databases which can digitize King Jacob Bible or something like this, and actually King James Bible. Actually, it's something. The database is something that formulates the policies of the company, and digitalization, it's actually affects the predictive models of the and the risks assessments, and subjectively we are losing because we don't have as much aggregated experience, and consolidation is missing. And as a stimulus, I can actually give an analogy. We as commercial banks should probably be a turtle from Zenon's paradox. Achilles has caught up with the turtle, so we have to always bypass Achilles, and the digital profile. With some people it was implemented before, with some later, and we have shared competences with them as P corporations and others, and there have been many opinions, and now we are going to share a feature of ours. And actually the state is a powerful tool, and we need to come up with something new. So we are a certain amphibia. We only have forces enough for one leap, and my esteemed boss Sergey has actually said something about pragmatic innovations. He said that we don't have enough resources for romanticism, and the private bank should defend their clients' money, but we don't have the right to commit many mistakes. We should be stronger, taller, faster, and Achilles in the form of a state or private monopolists. Common Graph like Sberbank are also serious machines that are helping with us. So it's like Mike Tyson, it's hard to live in our world for more than a minute. You can actually try to flap your wings, or otherwise you'll die. So, and I don't see many risks, hardware and software risks. Actually, they are all they are not insurmountable. You can overcome those risks. Actually, a shortcoming is that the legislative base is lagging behind, and there are actually some laws, digital ruble, and actually some household related things like a digital circulation, etc. So in order to somehow sort out some case at the Court of Arbitration of the city of Moscow and others, then you need to explain what it is, that it's actually some benign, some favorable thing. Unfortunately, we don't have case law, so every case is the same, and we need to refer to the things that have been implemented, and the legislative base is lagging behind. So it's like a rain. If you need an umbrella, you need to open it. It's something unavoidable, and you need to get used to it. It's like a virus with which you live until the end of your life. It creates a stimulus. If there are no stimulus, there are no obstacles, there will be no development, and the competition is very high among the banks. What I wouldn't want, but you can only apply for that to some superb powers. Sergey Khatinsky yesterday said that it would be good for the banks to show profitability. If you have a monetary pipeline, that what kind of a competition are you talking about? But among the private banks inside, digital banking, it's actually a train, and there are good locomotives, several cars, and starting from 2014, you are trying to jump, people are trying to jump on the last car, but it's actually a very harsh dumping practice. So I can accumulate clients, but there is certain physics. I'm not calling upon that to look at the leaders or anyone, but still there are some unreasonable risks. And they will be creating stimuli for developing. Dumping is creating stimuli for developing the speed for many players. And the quality of services, there is a reason, principle of being reasonable, because the company with a revenue of 10 million and for some it's 3 billion, so there are very many sub-segments, and every company is different, they'll look differently, and of course every company needs something of its own for digitalization, and some of them need something, so you need to accept the responsibility of a professional player and not give out on the market something that is not necessary. So there are some whistles or lights, flashing lights. So there is, this machine that plays chess and it has little midgets inside who are doing everything for this machine. And here it's the same, it's 3,000 people who are doing this classical bank, live people without any digitalization, so it's a bright picture about the night guard of a grocery warehouse whose name is Achilles. So how is it, to what extent is it important? Now, I will state my subjective opinion based on the experience that we have gone through with the state. It's actually not very customary, common in this country to praise the state in 2020 with the support programs during the pandemic. In 2021, why is it necessary? Because SMEs, from the point of view of the risks, it's quite specific, and nobody has found a golden bullet to assess the SMEs, and maybe it doesn't actually make a lot of sense. So banks have different attitudes, some have issued it, some not, they have accumulated some portfolio. It's a long story since 1990, and it's a very social segment, regardless of how it might sound, which is quite flexibly reacting to macroeconomic fluctuations, and I hope that the government will be expanding this function by saying to the bank, we need your competence, your services, your toolkit, and we can support some risks in the respective sector, and we can assess the clients, we can issue credits and sign papers, so there is quite a big amount of things that we have implemented. So I will start, actually a night guard is a good analogy, good comparison, but he is turning into a manager of the warehouse, and I think that it's a good trend that will continue. A lot of regulations, a lot of chaos. So I'm an entrepreneur. For example, I have a store, but how can I get a grocery store? How can I get those grants? And if someone would actually, like a broker, I would meet a broker who would actually help me get this credit, get this loan with a small commission. It would be good. So there should be some simplification. The bank gives a product, and the SMEs give a shoulder, give an easy toolkit, and we shouldn't go too far into an auction. So it's like a period through which we should go. So it's like a childhood disease period. Yes, and can I make a comment? I actually liked very much this Zenon's paradox. And it actually very well shows that it seems like between the state and private business there's an insurmountable gap that Achilles will never catch up with the turtle, but in the Middle Ages they have actually disproven it, and they're saying that Achilles can actually at a certain point come very close to the turtle, and so this distance is becoming ever smaller, and it seems like the state is infinitely far away, and it's speaking a different language, etc. But it's not true. It's coming closer to business. It's changing, and on my own experience, I can say that some people work in the private business, then they end up in the ministries. They understand how those mechanisms work, and there is some convergence which works, and people need to carefully continue with it, and there are quite a few tools for that. I would also remember an analogy from geometry, that parallel lines do not cross, but Lobachevsky said that they will cross somewhere in the infinity. I think we shouldn't perceive relations between business and state as infinity. And we spoke about stimuli, and which is even more important, about competition, among other things. So I would like to actually invite Viktor Simonenko, Roseltorg, Procurement Department. So, Viktor, can you now tell us how are things with the procurement and competition? Yes, good afternoon, dear colleagues. And in my brief story, I would like to emphasize the value of Fintech via the prism of state purchasing, and that we, as an electronic marketplace, are a gateway between the public money and the suppliers, including small and medium enterprise. And I would like to note the MSP corporations' important work, which has started to drive out, to lead out MSMEs out of the gray zone and try to shape their procurement procedures. And we understand that SME market is over 60 to 70% of the purchasing, and that it's not only a segment but a huge part of the national economy. Hundreds of thousands of enterprises which are contracting, which are trying to develop the business via that tool. And as we were discussing today's realities, and the lowering of competition in certain sectors during the time of the existence of the entire procurement system. The number of the procurers is higher than the actually volume of the procurement itself. It used to be small increment, small growth, 3 to 2 procurement to purchasing, and now it actually has gone down quite a bit, and the first ones are the maximum simplification, minimization of the entry threshold for the participants to the procurement tenders, and there are some barriers or some elements of the system, such as participation in the platform and provision of funds or bank guarantees, being able to present them, and abiding by the contract, availability of electronic signatures, and many things, and complicated process of any stages. They actually scare away many of those suppliers. We actually wouldn't mind trying it, but in fact, actually, Fintech has started helping us, and it started to simplify the processes, everything that's needed for taking part in the purchasing. Quickly obtained banking guarantee. You don't need to walk to the bank. You have your story, and over 15 minutes you get feedback from the bank. And PDA, it's actually an important vector. There is a constant increment of the credit money to start performing the contract. People are prepared, but they need to have some startup fee, because in many tools of the public procurement there are no advance payments, because advance payments are collected and diluted, and they are excluded in many cases. So for a small business, assuming a risk of several million rubles, but they cannot risk their turnover funds, but they wanna borrow and then get back that money from the state or from the company, and there are up to thousands of requests for the credits. So there is this shoulder, and actually you have 10-day period to apply. Then you actually have to have a banking guarantee with a relevant period, and you have this quick lag of for the performance, because there are many cases when it's turned down. Some banks agree, and some have scoring models, some have higher density, some have lower density when it comes to the risks, and it actually facilitates the competition. Therefore, I welcome the companies which are actively cooperating with us on this part. We are observing the fact that larger banks, the more state-level banks, it's easier for them to react, and slower. They actually they react slower, but there are fast banks. But we can connect another person to our conversation, Mr. Viktor Vernov, Director General of ROWI Digital Finance, and you don't mind, do you? Actually, it's easy. You can you have carte blanche, and you can so what kind of funds is available, is topical for the small business? Actually, we should probably return our discussion to the title of our event, and we are Fintech. We actually do the funding, and we work with the predominant part of our solutions with SMEs for economy reasons. But anyone from micro to large companies can use our services. If time permits, I can provide 2 minutes and say why it's the most important thing for SMEs, because it's a market which is not yet occupied. It's a market, it requires financial logistics, and there are some things that have been mentioned in the international practice. The share of the input from SMEs is higher, and in Russia it didn't work for some time. And why there is need for such services, I can refer to other things. There is a report from the central bank, and on the SMEs market, central bank's report tells us that the risk or the share of overdue payments is 7 to 8%, and that's actually a terrible figure. And 7 to 8%, if you are scared by that, actually half of them will have even worse data. And so some tools are necessary to be able to overcome that risk, to lower that risk, among other things by Fintech solutions, in order to be competitive. In those segments where there is no risk, there is no competition, and you should talk to 5 banks with the cheapest liquidity who process it, who work with it somehow. And that competitions allow us to do a very easy thing. It actually expands the availability of financial services for the new markets, because when the banks split between each other premium clients, it's not very cool, because it's cannibalization. Everybody likes good clients. So Fintech solutions for SMEs are important, and they are profitable for the clients and for us, because through that we are lowering the risks, and secondly, the companies need that money, and thirdly, it actually extends the pool and the market of financial resources and redistributes the profits. So that's actually overlaps with the technology revolution. Why SMEs now, and why do we see that Fintech is in high demand? Because because there is a great pain. When you have a pain, you go to hospital. You are prepared to sit in line, to do some screening, some analysis. You really need it. So neither client services were something the banks were involved with, not trying to become more transparent and understandable. If you are sick, coming back to that analogy, you can stay in line, you can wait. And when the retail finance have expanded, so actually the usage of finance is different. It's like going to a store and you don't even like consultants to come up to you. I'm just looking, and if you don't like the retail proposal, the retail offer, then you go away. So like Andrei Protopopov said, it's actually a different substance. It's not small businesses. And there the role of physical entities is a lot higher. There are more understandable human solutions that should be there. Fintech changes that. And here we are competitive with the large banks. We are working at the same time by lowering the risk and also by using utilizing smaller costs or incurring smaller costs. And our people, our clients are not luxury people. Sometimes there is a mistake that the experts actually spring away from whom they discuss. And the advertisement as well, we are seeing this. It's always handsome looking people with tablets who are showing how well everything is growing, the business is growing, say this is not how SMEs live, but actually they do have many technologies. Even taxi drivers, they have a very high technology level. They have optimized customers, but it's not a luxury life. It's hard collection, low average check. People can get lost, etc. And it's not a bright future, not a utopian future, but it's kind of a cyberpunk. But the level of the needs of SMEs is not high. So, but you always understand with whom you're working, and it's not a utopia. It's actually our clients, small businesses that deliver food, fresh food, for example, that you see in the morning, like a green salad, etc. They work at night because they need to load their truck at 3 o'clock and then at 10 or 11. You should see the goods. They don't work 9 through 6. Taxi drivers do not work 9 through 6. And when very proud banks are saying visit us, like those hospitals that want patients to wait in line, say come to us. It's from the old life. We are coming back, we are coming to those people with our embedded crediting. We're to the spot where the transactions are by the clients, not with the banners, not with the toys, but actually with everything. So it's a broad topic, and so it's a great time, which is supported by plenty of opportunities in Russia. There is a lot of access to data. It's great, like a trump card in our hands, and we have Fintech that competes. They actually pose a challenge, and it may be even better clients. Thank you. And why banks do not make solutions that you come up with? Can they do? They cannot, or they do not want it. I would actually like to join Victor. I agree with Victor, and we are going more into remote trade because we need to help the internet stores. We're working with the remote stores, remote trade stores. It's a growing market. And where people who are trading in the marketplaces, and when it comes to the merchants who are selling from their own sites or somewhere else, it's not dropping, but the growth is impeded. It's slow. So it's remote trade by trading via TV or in the social networks or via your own site. And it's a different kind of trade, different problems are necessary, and we started to go deeper into that. We are now talking about the embeddable funding, embedded payments into something, and we are digging through the logistics, and we are helping the SMEs to do the logistical products cheaper, to compare the delivery services between themselves and our country. The SMEs, actually, the trade are in Moscow and St. Petersburg, while the shoppers are far away. Logistics is, the logistical legs is long, and our customers want to pay upon receipt, and then this money goes back, and all of that aggravates the life of SMEs, and actually the products of normal factoring do not work because the customers does not have to buy, they can wait and not buy. So as a result, the actual factoring does not work, but there is so much data that if you go deep into that data and see how many parcels are shipped, how many were purchased, how many were not purchased, all of that, if you start to assess it and go deep into it, you start to access that growing market and satisfy the needs for the payment of those merchants, and that's our mission. So let's draw some conclusions, if you would. Can I have a mic? We have 3.5 minutes left, and we will try. To whom is the question addressed? Roman Bozhev, Bureau of Credit Histories. About the overdue payments as SMEs, I'm professionally involved with that, and I'm building risk assessment models. It's actually a common error, because actually SMEs do not have such large default time, do not default on the payments that often. I often read about a semi-credit portfolio, and then I cry and close this, because actually bad debts depreciate, good debts depreciate, bad debts accumulate, and the share of bad overdue payments is growing, because it's bad debts which are not solved. And in the 2015, because of the Crimea sanctions, import sanctions, counter sanctions, it was up to 15% in some segments. Then it was dropping, and by the end of 2018, the real loss reduced by about 2% in small business, and that's below the risk of the risk appetite of any bank. So now there is a splash, a burst in March and April, but there is not much overdue amount, and the balanced portfolio does not describe a big overdue payment. Actually, also it sort of hurts my ear as well in the fact of the market mechanism. We are crediting different models of the banks, and we see historical defaults and forecasted defaults. And the historical defaults with the largest bank, it's around the same 2% or even less. It can be, on average, it's 2%. In some cases, it can be 4%. But the central bank statistics as follows certain selection. The picture is even better. Actually, just a second. It also depends on how it's assessed. Because if it's a 10,000 ruble overdue on the basic debt of 10 million, they will put it in the drawer in the section for overdue. So actually, the doctor, the difference between good doctor and bad doctor is that the good doctor will never tell the patient, is never afraid to tell the patient that the patient would die. And actually the patients perceive it they're not very happy about it. So there are many pseudo doctors. The patient may go to a witch doctor, a shaman doctor, and they will start to drink some special water or something. So we all need to be good doctors, both banks and fintech institutions, etc. It's hard to strange to refer to me if there's a report by the second bank, but you should actually have courage and address it to the regulator and argue officially on behalf of the companies that you represent. And this story has many details. There are many crises that happen, something happens, and sometimes the default level is high, sometimes it's low, but if you are in the dragonfly format, when everything is good, you show your good indicators. If not, then you go, then you quit the job and go work for a different institutions. But every 5 years, something can happen, and it's an alarming story, because in many markets where enthusiasts come every 5 years, and they are enthusiastic because they don't have experience, but then they have to retreat because of the situations, and it's reasonable to address it to the central bank. So there is this irony. I have asked for a discussion, it started. So, but I would like anyway thank all the audience, thank all the spectators, and it takes some walking to arrive somewhere. You need to walk the way, walk the road to achieve your